On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer.
In 1990, Sega's Game Gear sported a full-color backlit screen to compete with the Game Boy's shades of green. By 1999, the Game Boy was an ancient relic compared to SNK's Neo Geo Pocket Color, with its 16-bit arcade ports and marvelous clicky stick. 6 years later, Sony's PSP was the bleeding edge of handheld technology, and popular opinion said that Nintendo didn't stand a chance with its goofy, untested dual-screen concept. These three portables all rivaled Nintendo's, and on paper, they all had a litany of advantages. Better hardware, better screens, bridge zones. And yet, all three failed to command the market. At best, they came in second place, but at worst, they were doomed to obscurity. So for 20 years, Nintendo dominated the handheld market, but the company's roots go back even further. Before Mario or Donkey Kong or Zelda, the portable Game & Watch line was the foundation on which Nintendo built its legacy in this industry. The one aberration in all this success was the Virtual Boy, an oversized Viewmaster that literally told you to take breaks every 20 minutes or risk permanent eye damage. It was an ill-conceived stopgap that gave half the people who played it headaches and had maybe a single game worth playing. 15 years later, Nintendo would announce another attempt at 3D. The Nintendo 3DS would be the first new gaming hardware of the next generation. While it was at least actually portable, the company had seemingly forgotten many of the mistakes that they had made with the Virtual Boy. The 3DS would launch with maybe a single game worth playing. The 3D effect, while impressive, could be a discomfort for many people. Worst of all, it would be the most expensive handheld the company had ever produced. The 3DS would launch in the US at a staggering $250. Nintendo dominated handheld gaming for 20 years, but their time was up. For a while, it looked for all the world like the new portable would share the Virtual Boy's fate. This is the Geek Critique, the rise and fall of the 3DS. $250 is a lot of money, but I had a lot of DS's. Okay, well I had two, a Lite and an XL. So when the 3DS launched on March 27th, 2011, I just traded them in and then I still had to pay like $15 more. At least getting rid of the old hardware was an easy choice. The 3DS was fully backwards compatible with the old DS, which at least made its name a little less silly, and that's the first thing I noticed as I unpacked the system. Oh, I guess the name is clever, the DS was a huge success, and I know Nintendo wanted to maintain brand recognition, but to the uninformed consumer, the 3DS might sound like another incremental upgrade to the DS, rather than a new system all its own. The second thing that struck me, as I flipped the screen open for the first time, was just how tiny it seemed. Moving from the enormous bright screens of the DSi XL would be an adjustment. The third thing that struck me, and the last thing I thought as I turned the 3D on and my eyeballs melted, was, wow, this is cool. We'll talk more in depth about the Virtual Boy another time, but that red and black eye eater solidified my love for 3D when I was a kid. It's a gimmick, sure, but it's one I've always really enjoyed. So there would very rarely be a time, at least for that first year, when I didn't have the 3D slider maxed out. The first thing I tried was the 3D camera. My buddy Kalen and I traipsed around the mall, taking close-up pictures of things, damaging the vision of passerby, and creating a horrifying fusion of ourselves. The quality was awful, but it was fun. Street Pass took more time to figure out. It's like a wireless handshake. When the system's in range of another 3DS, they'll automatically exchange game data and Mii's. A couple of days after launch, I went on a trip to Atlanta, Georgia. An entire weekend of walking, and I do mean walking, around this vast metropolis, capped by an entire evening in an arena of 70,000 people. A huge crowd like that, and my 3DS got 3 Street Passes. 3. My first time completing a puzzle took months. My first time through Find Me took longer. But 4 years later, I'm still coming back to the Street Pass Me Plaza. It's full of simple, fun little games, and I'm really glad Nintendo is still making new stuff for it. Back then though, this built-in software was all I had. And no, really, Face Raiders was so much fun. I went back to the mall the next day and got Super Street Fighter IV 3D. It was a showcase for the system, a game that never could have been done so faithfully on the DS. But here's something kind of obscure. Street Fighter IV runs at 30 frames per second even if you've got the 3D slider off. Oddly enough though, this is the only game I know of that actually lets you completely disable the stereoscopic 3D in the options menu, and when you do that, it doubles the frame rate to 60. Considering how many people just turn the 3D off anyway, it's weird that more games don't do something like this. Well, aside from Pokemon, but those were terribly optimized anyway. I've always loved Street Fighter. I've never been very serious about it, but I've always enjoyed it. And being able to pop off a few matches anywhere I wanted was really cool. Although I'd never had anybody to play it with, it was still a port of a game that I'd already played to death. So it was a bit of a sting that the next big game was also a port, but I did need something to justify owning this thing. And this game really did look like a stellar remaster. So in June of 2011, I rediscovered one of the best games of all time.
It's Banjo-Kazooie!
Ha! I wish. No, my second 3DS game was The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D. I have a complicated and unusual relationship with Ocarina of Time, and it'll get its own video eventually. But for now, Ocarina of Time 3D is in my mind the definitive version of the game. There's just something about this formula that translates really well to portability for me. It took advantage of the 3DS's features, it looked gorgeous, and it included a lot of user-friendly upgrades. A quicker, leaner item system, a water temple that wasn't so tedious and confounding, and my favorite change of all, the Sheikah Stones. Crawl into a Sheikah Stone, and the game will show you hint movies for whatever situation you're in. They're totally optional, but I do understand why a lot of hardcore Zelda zealots really hate them. But they did something very important for me. They kept me from getting stuck. And thanks to that, I did something I'd never done before in Ocarina of Time. Everything. Every gold Skulltula, every heart container, even the Begoron sword. And I truly enjoy the experience. Never let it be said that I don't appreciate this game. It's just, well, it's a matter for another time. For ages, those 3 from Atlanta were the only street passes I had. I felt as though I was part of some underground cult of 3DS owners. But there were plenty of good reasons the 3DS wasn't selling. 2 3D ports and a bunch of gimmicky software couldn't save it. And even for me, the novelty was gone. 2011 was the first time Nintendo lost money in 27 years. Third-party publishers started canceling upcoming releases. The 3DS was dying fast. It was sad to say, but my system just sat in its cradle, collecting dust. Nintendo's biggest mistake was launching so early. The eShop wasn't ready, the internet browser wasn't there. Basic parts of the firmware weren't finished, let alone a strong library of games. To turn things around would take a tremendously steady hand. The first move Nintendo made was to cut the price by a third, from $250 all the way down to $170. To make up that $80 difference to suckers like me who'd bought the system at launch, Nintendo announced the Ambassador program, wherein early adopters would be compensated with 20 free Virtual Console games, 10 NES classics that would eventually be sold on the eShop, and 10 Game Boy Advance games that are still, to this day, exclusive to Ambassadors. In fact, having an Ambassador system is the only way to play any GBA games at all on a 3DS. The system has to boot to DS mode to play them, so you can't Street Pass, and the games can't have any save states or controller remapping. I really don't think most people would mind losing those features if it meant they could play GBA games on their current gen handheld, but Nintendo's always made some really weird limiting decisions when it comes to the Virtual Console. Cutting the price by such a huge amount only 4 months after launch was certainly a desperation move, but the Ambassador program was a savvy one. The only people who'd bought a 3DS at that point were the hardcore Nintendo fanboys, and if you want to placate us, then giving our own childhood memories back to us is a good way to do it. Placating Nintendo's investors would be more difficult. Nintendo's upper management took pay cuts across the board, and Satoru Iwata, the president of the company, cut his own salary in half, saying, "We decided that if we take brave measures now, there's high likelihood that many players can enjoy the Nintendo 3DS in the future." Making the price less insane was one thing, but the true difference maker would arrive as an absolute avalanche. The final quarter of 2011 saw the release of 57 3DS games. This, in my mind, was the true launch of the system. We got one more gorgeous N64 port in Star Fox 64 3D. The 7th Mario Kart will always be a system seller. Sonic arrived with the rather disappointing handheld version of Sonic Generations. But when I look back on this ascension, I always think of the game that finally made this thing worth the purchase to me: Super Mario 3D Land. Back in 1996, Super Mario 64 took Mario into a dimension he'd never gone before. To that end, Nintendo boldly divorced the plumber from many of his signature 2D mechanics. No fire flowers, no Tanuki suits or starmen or shell kicking. The focus was placed instead on the way you moved Mario through these new worlds with no definitive endpoints. It was absolutely the necessary change to define a new subgenre: the 3D platformer. And it makes it all the more special that 15 years later, Super Mario 3D Land was able to remarry these two very different gameplay styles, combining the 3D controls that serve the series so well with old-school linear stages and power-ups. It's a fantastic, surprisingly lengthy game, and it gave the 3DS its first killer app. So heading into 2012, the veil was lifting. Sales were up, critical acclaim was way up, and the library kept growing. What was it Reggie said? That if you're not a 3DS owner, or at least thinking of becoming one,
what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
This became a rallying cry, and one by one, nearly every Nintendo fan I knew came on board. But what happens when everyone has a Nintendo handheld? Aw, that's right, here comes a new 3DS! Yep, just as fast as sales could spike, Nintendo addressed my main issue with the hardware and brought out the 3DS XL. It's big, it's beautiful, it's signed by the voice of Mario, Charles Martinet. It's the reason I still wear jean shorts. What? They're comfy and easy to wear. Launching alongside the XL was New Super Mario Bros. 2. This was the first retail 3DS game that was also available for download. I've mentioned before that I was a PC gamer in a past life, so it should come as no surprise. I love digital distribution. I mean, okay, I see the tangible appeal of boxes, but there's way more appeal to me in having this vast library of games to just scroll through, and especially on a portable system where you'll be switching on the fly, I think it makes a lot more sense. Maybe that's a controversial opinion, but here's another. I love New Super Mario Bros. 2. In fact, it might be my favorite in the series. I'm not saying it's the best, but I've certainly played it more than any of the others. You don't get that gold Mario statue for nothing. I acknowledge the gripes everyone has with the New Super Mario games, and this game was definitely where it really hit the tipping point and became just kind of more of the same. But what can I say, I'm a sucker for a solid platformer, and I'm even more of a sucker for skill challenges and rope memorization, which is why I spent so much time perfecting a run through Coin Rush, a mode that gives you 3 stages to grab as many coins as you can. I'm not as good as I used to be, but at one time I could actually max out the single run counter. By the time I perfected that, it was summer 2013. It was balmy, it was boring, it was the last free time I had before I started this channel. I needed something to occupy my time, and so I took a bit of a chance. I downloaded Animal Crossing New Leaf, even though I hadn't gotten into the series since the GameCube original. I mean, without NES games to collect, I figured, what was the point? I had no idea I'd find so much to sink my teeth into. The series had come a long way since the GameCube. All the retro Nintendo items were awesome, but I found myself doing things that I never enjoyed doing in games, like decorating and designing clothes and building custom paths and having neighbors randomly move in and destroy those custom paths. I still don't quite know why, but I was hooked all summer, and by the end of it, Animal Crossing was my most played game on the system by more than 100 hours. Feel free to stop by if you street pass me at a convention sometime. Just don't go in the basement. A terrible fate is all that awaits you down there. By the middle of 2014, literally every gamer I knew had a 3DS, and... oh, of course. Here comes a new 3DS! Literally. Oh god. The 3DS name was 1 part silly and 2 parts clever, but new Nintendo 3DS? Calling it that in Japan is okay, the English word new really does differentiate it. But in English-speaking countries, you can't just throw around such a common adjective like that. Why not, I don't know, 3DDS? Super 3DS? Ultra Hyper Nintendo 3DS 64 Championship Edition! And Knuckles. You know what I hate? Cords. Stupid power adapters always getting tangled up and charging my portable devices. But don't worry, the US finally caught up with the rest of the world because the new 3DS doesn't come with a power adapter. You literally have to buy an accessory in order to make the system usable. Good! I only wanted to play for a few hours anyway. I know the logistics behind it, I know the explanation for it, but seriously, there's no defending this. Neither this ridiculous omission, nor the ridiculous name take away from what a great piece of hardware this is. I mean, a second circle pad would have been nice, but the nub works a lot better than it looks. Outside of that, I just love this thing. I've only had it for a few months, and I've already gotten so acclimated to how much faster it loads that I almost forgot to mention it. It's such a massive upgrade, with built-in amiibo support, extra shoulder buttons, navigating the menu with the analog nub. More importantly, the new 3DS finally makes the system's signature gimmick worth using. On the old system, the 3D effect could only be seen from a perfect straight-on angle. Even I'd gotten to the point where I'd turn the 3D off most of the time. But the new 3DS tracks your eyes and adjusts the 3D visuals accordingly. It's hard to explain, but this change makes the 3D so much more immersive and just real. I've gone back and played my entire library on it, because having 3D that works that well reinvigorates every game I have. Except for Sonic Lost World, that one still sucks. But really, the head tracking 3D makes such a huge difference. And speaking of huge, we only got the new 3DS XL in the US, but the rest of the world got the XL and a smaller version. Finally, all you guys who told me I was dumb for wanting a bigger screen back when the original came out, get to experience the pain of yearning for the other version. Haha. Nah, but really, I feel ya. Those Super Famicom colored buttons are awesome. Hey, you can get it now. I hope you like Animal Crossing. And you might have noticed, my new 3DS XL came with one more game. Mostly I just liked the color scheme, but it turned out to be one more instance where the 3DS helped me broaden my horizons. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. It's a perfect showcase for the new 3DS's power. Not only is the analog nub used to control the camera, the game also has much nicer textures and graphics on the new system. I had never played a Monster Hunter before this one, and that is perhaps fortunate, because I think I'd have hated it. I can tell that this is a franchise that has been through a long series of iterative improvements, and it's only just now become user-friendly, for the most part. I love the monthly free DLC. I enjoy the actual monster hunting. I love how many different kinds of weapons there are, and how different each one feels, how deeply a weapon impacts your playstyle. I just don't really care for much else about it. Item management, weapon sharpness, gathering materials and using them to make yourself stronger. I've heard it argued that how good you are in Monster Hunter is all derived from your own skill, but I don't see it. When I have to take down the same monster over and over and over and over to be able to make one set of armor, I mean, skill is a factor, but you mostly get stronger when you put more time into the game. Way more than when you get better at it. It's unfortunate, because this sense of growth is the entire point of Monster Hunter, and that's the part I couldn't stay invested in. I guess it's just not really my kind of game, but if it's yours, it is a fantastic one. But really, that's what's so great about the 3DS. No matter what kind of gamer you are, you'll find plenty to love about it. Where the original DS attracted Nintendo diehards and the untapped blue ocean of non-gamers, the 3DS has taken a different path. It has become the definitive gamer system, with the most solid, varied, wonderful library of video games on the market today. If you're serious about this stuff, if you have the heart of a gamer, well, you have a 3DS. And there are so many awesome times I've had with it, so many games that I haven't even talked about. Phoenix Wright Dual Destinies, best in the franchise. Pokemon X and Y would overtake Animal Crossing as my most played game, and then Smash 3DS would overtake Pokemon. It really has all come full circle. The title of this video is The Rise and Fall of the 3DS, but I didn't say it happened in that order. What Nintendo was able to recognize is that glasses-free 3D was a gimmick. It's a good gimmick, an impressive gimmick, a gimmick that I personally really enjoy, but it's not something you can sell a system on. That core will always be software. And with a continuous, steady stream of hit after hit after hit for years now, the 3DS has been able to rise from the ashes. From the first time I flipped that screen open, I knew it was something special. I always fondly remember those early days, even if for a minute I felt like a sucker for getting it at launch. But it was worth it, because just calling it something special was severely underestimating it. The 3DS might just be the best gaming device Nintendo has ever made.